You're listening to the winning literary show, Off the Shelf Books Talk Radio, live with host Denise Turney, author of the books Long Walk Up, Portia, Love Pour Over Me, Spiral, Love Has Many Faces, and Rosetta's Great Hope. Turn up your dial and get ready for a blast of feature author interviews, 411 on book festivals, writing conferences, and so much more. Ready? Let's go.
It all. Good morning, and welcome to Off the Shelf Books. I always have to thank our loyal listeners who have been with us the entire way, 18 years. And for those, if it's your first time tuning in to Off the Shelf, I say welcome. And we're so happy to have you here with us this morning. Kicking off today's show is a quote by Isabel Lafecci. Your passion is waiting for your courage to catch up. I love that quote. Your passion is waiting for your courage to catch up. Welcome. You guys, we are more than halfway through July. It is Saturday, July 19th already. If there's something you want to do, I encourage you to get to it. I normally will start off next talking about one of my books, but instead of doing that, because I want to get right into the interview today, I encourage you to visit me online and you can read free excerpts from any of my books. I just came out also with 2 middle school coloring books. If you have any young folks in your life, I know how much I used to love to color when I was a kid, especially on a rainy day. It's cloudy here in the southeastern part of the United States. But my website URL is Chistel, www.chistell.com. You can read free excerpts. There's a lot there that you can check out. My blog is there, etc. Again, it's Chistel, CHISTELL.com. I hope you bookmark it and go back again and again and grab a book while you're over there. And now let us go and meet our very special off the shelf guest. And this morning's guest is Lluew Grey. Lluew is, and I hope I'm saying his name right, and if not, I hope he corrects me. Lluew is a writer, photographer, sound engineer, and he is a reader. And this morning I got him said, I gotta go out and get a new novel to read. Not only do I write, but I love to read novels myself. And he served in the Navy for 20 years. He has also worked as an educator. And Lluew is the author of the books To End the Night, Julius Caesar's Secret War, and the Ballad of Jace. He and his wife live with their dogs and chickens on planet Earth. I encourage you to visit Lluew online at lluewgrayauthor.com, and that's spelled L as in like, LLUEWGREYAUTHOR.com, lluewgrayauthor.com. We are just honored to have Lluew Grey join us on Off the Shelf Books this morning. Welcome to Off the Shelf, Lluew.
Thank you, Denise. I appreciate that glowing introduction. That was amazing.
Oh, we look forward to what you share. I always learn something for every guest. Every guest, I learn something. I'm sure our listeners do too, which is why they keep coming back. So, the first few questions I'm going to ask you, I ask every guest to give our listeners a little backstory on the authors before we start talking about their books. So, to kick off today's show, Lluew, can you tell off the shelf listeners where you grew up and what life was like for you growing up?
I grew up in New York, and most people hear that and they think about a city, but I grew up on a dairy farm in upstate New York, and life was pretty slow. I mean, get up in the morning, bring the cows in, start the milk and chores, go to school, come home, and time for evening chores. So then summertime was usually spent out in the hay fields, and that was most of my life growing up until I was uh, starting to get old enough to leave home. Then I decided I wanted to be a rich and famous actor, so I tried my hand at Hollywood for a while and ended up joining the military after a couple of years of Hollywood not wanting me. And the rest is history. Here I am.
Do you have siblings or were you an only child growing up?
I have. I was the youngest for 16 years, and then I have a sister that came along when I was
Oh,
16,
interesting.
and then
Interesting.
I have a sister that's like 6 years older than me, a brother that's 5 years older, and a brother that's 1 year older. Who, like most siblings that are that close in age, we hated each other growing up, and now he's my best friend. So
Oh, wow. So when you were doing acting though, um, did you ever do like commercials? You said you did it for a few years. You must have had some success, even if it wasn't as much as you would have liked, eh, to keep
yeah,
yourself motivated.
I did some stage work. I did some commercials. Nothing big, nothing national. I did some extra work. Some sitcoms and things, but just walk by the window while they're looking out or whatever kind of stuff. Nothing earth
Well,
shattering.
well, congratulations on that. Though not everybody can say that. To whatever steps you took, you did get some bites for your effort. Now, when you were a kid, Lou, what did you dream of being? What did you want to become when you were a kid?
Depends on how old a kid. As I got older, I wanted to be that rich and famous actor. But when I was a little kid, I wanted nothing more than to be a farmer.
Oh, interesting, interesting. Who or what inspired your love for writing books?
Oh, that's the hardest question. I I grew up reading. I was reading Tolkien by the time I was in like first grade. My mom, we didn't have a TV in the house growing up. It was all, reading books, and and I had plenty of
Oh,
older siblings, and I always felt dumb if I couldn't keep up with them. So I was reading very early, and I've just been reading my whole life, and I've written stories my whole life. Just never thought about publishing them until we were trying to decide what I was going to do with the rest of my life because I was medically discharged from the military and I couldn't continue teaching because my health. And my wife was like, "Why don't you just start publishing some of the stuff you write?" So I picked a book that I had written probably 10 years before that, which was the To End the Night, Julius Caesar's Secret War. And I sent it to an editor, which I used cup and quill editing. Linda there was very nice, and she sent it to one of her employees, Andy. And Andy was working with an editor was such an amazing experience. And Andy Malinsky, he's actually moved out on his own now. He's got his own editing business that he's starting. So highly recommend cup and quill editing, but I also highly recommend Andy. He's the guy that I always use, and he's beyond editing github.io, and he's available to use as an editor. But yeah, I
okay.
had written that book forever before that, and then my wife was like, "Just get it out there." So I went through a little bit of editing process with Andy, who tried to make me turn this little novella into a much bigger book, but I was like, "No, I'm done writing it. I just want to get it out there." And we did. And then I wrote my second book after that, and I'm partway through my third, and I love it.
Wow, look at you. Now going to as we dig a little deeper into to end the night before we talk about your second novel, have you seen history repeat itself? And I've heard people say it does. Even when I'm going to say we humans, all humans, we swear that we won't let something happen again. And then have you seen that in your research work, just your travels, just everyday life, uh, in your encounters, have you seen that history tends to repeat itself?
Oh, absolutely. Yep, for sure.
Hmm. Can you share an instance when you think that as humans we keep doing something over and over again?
Well, obviously, we're talking about Julius Caesar's Secret War to end the night. So, I mean, in this case, we've got Julius Caesar who he took a democracy basically into a dictatorship. And we see that again and again throughout history. There's tons of times where uh, democracy, relatively free people, are taken, and it, beyond just taking it something from a democracy into a dictatorship, which is what Caesar's, real history, Caesar's goals were. It was very much a cult of personality. He was loved by the common man and hated by the rich people because he was loved so much by the common man. So it was very much a cult. His soldiers loved him. He was seen as a soldier's soldier. He led from the front. He wasn't just a general standing around giving orders. He would put himself in the thick of it. He was seen as kind of a badass, and he definitely had his cult of personality. And I mean, not to draw any conclusions to orange people or anything, but that's happening today. It happened with Hitler. It happened with Mussolini. It happened with all kinds of, and you flavor it a little bit differently depending on who the dictator is and what the situation was. But the basics of it are basically the same. I mean, history repeats, just has a little bit different. It's like bell bottoms coming back. They don't look exactly the same as they did in the 60s, but they came back for a while.
Yeah.
So
Now, how much time did you spend researching the actual Julius Caesar, his history, before you started writing to end the night?
I actually started writing it before I started researching too much. I knew,
Ah,
and it was written over a very long period of time while I was in the military, and just when I got to it, I'd write some here and there. But I mean, I knew most people know at least the Shakespeare version of his story and that kind of stuff, and I wanted to. I actually had the idea for the vampires that are in the book first, and I wanted to find something to do with them, and giving Julius Caesar a motivation beyond self-aggrandizement seemed like a decent place to do that. So I started kind of writing, and then I was like, man, I need to figure out a lot more. So I bought a couple of his biographies, books that Julius Caesar actually wrote about his own life. And then I was like, well, that's all just from his point of view. So I dove in and I got some books by Cicero and other people that were contemporary to him at the time that they wrote about the same situation. And that led me down a rabbit hole into more and more books. And then I got, textbooks, and I looked in the index of the textbooks to find out where they got their information. And I got the books that the textbooks referenced. And I ended up getting over 100 books on the Roman Civil War and Julius Caesar and that time frame, and did a lot of research in the long run. But in the short term, I just kind of dove into it and said, let's see what happens.
interesting. Yeah, when you start going into the novel, then you're like, okay, I got to make sure this is accurate because there are readers who know every little thing about what you're writing about, and especially historical fiction. And they'll say, no, 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 that's not what happened, or no, that's not the right, whatever. That didn't happen during that time period. So the research is important. Now, where you started writing this book long before you thought, oh, you know what, I'm going to start writing and publishing novels. You started before then. Where did you get the idea for the book to end the night? What inspired you to even write it?
Uh, I've always kind of loved like vampire stuff. And I think at the time that I started writing this, and this is how long ago it was when, oh goodness, what's it called? Vampire movie where the vampires and the werewolves are fighting. Um, that could be a whole bunch of different movies, right? But why am I having that? Anyway, there was a vampire movie series that was out that was really popular, and I
I'm
started.
trying to think of it too, and I can't either. So I guess we're in the same boat. But yeah, I think I can imagine which one you're talking about, but the name's not coming to me either. So that's what
the
inspired it.
The main vampire lady was a death dealer, and she was out fighting the werewolves. And gosh, I can't. My brain is not working. Anyway, that's just what had like vampires and stuff on my mind because it was really popular at the time, and I'd always kind of liked different. I read Bram Stoker's Dracula and stuff when I was in high school, and I wanted to do like a completely different take on vampires. I didn't want them to be. This was before those movies came out, but I didn't want them to be the sparkling, pretty Twilight vampires or any of the other romantic. I wanted them to be ugly and scary and all of that stuff. So I started coming up with an entire history of if vampires were real, how might they have come into being, and what might they be like? Why would they have these weaknesses that vampires have? The running water, the garlic, all of these things. And so I started building up all of that. And then I was like, well, if I'm going to write some stories about this, which at the time was just writing them for myself, I got to find a place to put them. So do I want to do like their own world, not on Earth, or do I want to do it on a fictional version of Earth? And then I decided, you know what, I'm going to do it as like historical fiction because I also really like history. I read a lot of historical fiction. And I just kind of picked Julius Caesar as a place to write the first story in this vampires are real world. And I don't know, it just kind of went from there. I didn't have a real impetus or anything that really made me pick Caesar. I don't even remember what it was, but somewhere I decided that was where I wanted to start with these vampires. So it was all really about finding a place for the vampires in the beginning, and going to historical fiction was kind of just an offshoot of that.
Okay. Can you give off the shelf listeners an overview of To End the Night?
Sure, it starts off when Julius Caesar, or the day before actually, Julius Caesar crosses the Rubicon, which, if you know the history, the Rubicon is a stream. They call it a river, but it's not. If you look at it, you could kind of step across it. It's small, but it's a river in Italy that at the time was the boundary between the provinces and Rome itself. And if a general were to bring his army across that border into Rome itself, it was instantly seen as insurrection against the law. Generals had to disband their armies before they could come into Rome proper. Rome, the country, not the city as we know it today. And so it starts off there the day before he crosses the Rubicon with his armies and kicks off his civil war. And it goes all the way up until the end of his life, which, the Ides of March, he gets stabbed by the Senate. If you didn't know that, I'm sorry, spoilers. But yeah, and it's the whole story of his civil war that he started. And instead of being a whatever his real motivations were, he's got his own biographies and everything out that you can read. I just kind of switched his motivations to he started the Civil War to fight the vampire overlords of Rome, and yeah, so it's very short. It with that time frame and that subject matter, it could have been a 400 plus page novel, but it's only an 87 page novella. It's very short, but
Okay.
yeah.
Where is the story uh, fully or in part? Well, what would be in part at most? How much of it is based on real life events? Would you say?
Everything except the vampires. I did a
Oh,
lot of research.
oh,
Everything I included in here is true. I had some readers call me out and be like, there's no way that Julius Caesar invented the 365-day calendar and blah, blah, blah. Like, no, he did. I mean, he may not have invented it himself, but he implemented it regardless of, who he used and whatever. that was him, and a lot of other things in here that people are like. There's one point where in Julius Caesar's life where he was a general and he got uh, wounded and he couldn't lead his army out onto the battleground, so he actually had a body double go out in his armor and everything to lead the people because his soldiers were used to seeing him leading, and he didn't want them to be disheartened and lose because they didn't have their heart in it. So he actually gave a body double his armor and sent them out. And there's a lot of things like that that different readers have sent me messages saying, "Oh, this felt really good and was a lot of fun until you got to this, and that's just took me out of it because it's so far fetched." But no, it's real. It's actual history. You can Google it and find out. It's all. So yeah, that's
Yeah, and that's interesting when you said that. Readers, I've had a reader say that to me once. I was all into the story until this one scene happened, and I just couldn't believe it. And then once something becomes implausible, or just the reader's like, no, that would never happen. That you could lose the reader, even if what you're writing about is actually factual. They just if they don't believe it. Now, for off the shelf listeners, Lou, who aren't familiar at all with Julius Caesar, they don't. They were like, who is that? Can you describe the character, what his family background, his personality? Is he like he's like the a main character? Can you describe him for people who don't even know who he is?
the real Julius Caesar or the one in my book, because like they're basically the same, but obviously there would be some minor differences in that.
Yeah, the one in your book.
Okay, so the Julius Caesar in my book, just like the one in real life, he grew up in a wealthy family, um, and he was raised from the time that he was basically an infant to become a general and increase his family's name and all this kind of stuff. Um, and he had a lot of relatives that had political power. His individual branch of the family didn't at the time have much, but there was very much the thing in Rome to the families, the clans, the Julii. That's where Julius gets the clan Julii. All the different clans, they vied for power. Kind of, it was a democracy. They had the Senate. But it was very much uh, different clans pretty much vying for like the most power and the most control and whatever. So he was kind of raised in that environment, and the best path for to do that was become a soldier, become a general, bring glory to Rome, come back, and you could get the consulship, and you could get all this power and all this glory, and raise your family's name and all that kind of stuff. So his life basically went the same way it did in history, except when he was very young, he was introduced to the real power in Rome. And the real power was the vampires, the shadowy enclave of string pullers that the common people of Rome had no real idea of exactly what was going on, but it was kind of uh, an open secret, if you would, that there were these shadowy evil creatures in Rome that did whatever. But the extent of their power and everything was not really known. So Julius was introduced to the vampires, and they were using him as a tool to uh, help manipulate the politics of Rome and all of that. And finally, he just had enough and wanted to rebel against the vampire overlords and change the way things went. So he was a very prideful man that was raised in this kind of seek glory kind of thing, and he spent most of his life trying to raise up his family and seek glory and do all these wonderful, what was considered wonderful things. And so he went along with what the vampires said because he knew that that would get him what he wanted until finally he couldn't stomach it anymore, and that's where the book
Mm. Is
goes.
this a little science fiction?
Say that again.
Is the book? Would you say a mildly science fiction or no?
Um, I wouldn't say science fiction because that kind of implies a futuristic or a sciency kind of thing, but fantastic, definitely kind of a fantasy, unreal, gothic horror, maybe aspect to historical fiction. So it
Okay.
is historical fiction, but it's the fiction parts are much more fantastical than a lot of historical fiction.
Who are these vampires? Are they like real tall, big? Are they creatures? Are they like humans? Who are they? Can you describe the vampires for our listeners?
Well, in the book, you never get a real in this book, you never get a real sense, and I kind of did that on purpose where I wanted this book to be a teaser of where people are like, "Oh, I want to know more about these vampires." Um, so I don't want to give away too much, but they are at first glance very human. If you see
Hmm.
them out and about in the daytime wearing a cloak or whatever, they might look like a frail human or a skinny human or whatever. But if you uncover that, they are shriveled, they are scary, they're
Mm.
unnaturally fast and strong, and their senses are elevated. They can see better than everyone else. They can hear better than everyone else. They can move faster than everyone else. They're stronger than everyone else. But all of that has come at a price to their bodies. So uh, their visage is not appealing. They're not meant to be these beautiful, charming Transylvanian uh, royalty. They're very much selfish, evil creatures, and their visage reflects that.
Mm. What is life like for our listeners again to imagine it? What is life like living in Rome during the time the story takes place?
Well, that very, very different life for different people, much like in America today. Uh, what is life like in America? Well, for who? For
Mm.
the 1%, life is pretty good. For the you know bottom 40% or so, life is pretty not good. It's what you make of it as far as your day to day happiness goes. But and Rome was very much the same way at the time. The upper crust lived a very good life. If you were a citizen of Rome, uh, you were there was a lot of great benefits to being a citizen of Rome, and or if you were just someone that happened to live in the area that Rome claimed but weren't a citizen, life was much less wonderful than that. And if you were a slave, then because they did have slaves, and they talk about the gladiators and that kind of stuff, and that was one way to win freedom as a slave. You'd be thrown into gladiator pits, and
Mm.
if you won enough fights and were the champion for long enough, then you could be granted your freedom, and you know things like that. So life in Rome at the time, we're talking about, uh, you know, he died in. I'm having a brain fart now. It's been long enough since I did the research. He died somewhere around 40 BC. So if you can imagine, if you're Christian and you think about what life was like uh, at Jesus' time, that's the average. That's kind of what life would have been like, as far as technology and comfort and that kind of stuff.
I want to know what's happened. Now, for me, pulling the story into this is I want to know what happens with Julius Caesar and his vampires, and if he I don't want you to give it away, but if he knew when he interacted with them just what they were, did he just think they had power? He didn't really know what they were, what they could do. He just was. He wanted. He thought they could give him leverage, and but it was more than what he thought. As the story goes on, can you introduce us to some of the other major and minor characters who helped move the story forward?
There are vampires. There's one vampire in particular that he begins to recognize that maybe doesn't have the same motivations, isn't exactly the same as the rest.
Hmm.
So there's kind of that going on in there. There's obviously some of his friends like Brutus and things like that are in the story that help drive it forward. There's Cicero is in the story. He's not a big character, but he's a big influence on Caesar at the time, and he was in real life a big influence on Caesar. And Cleopatra is a huge one. Cleopatra plays a pretty
Ah,
big role.
okay. What have readers, before we start talking about the Ballad of Jace, what have readers been saying about To End the Night, Julius Caesar's Secret War?
Um, I've gotten a lot of really positive feedback. Like I said, I've gotten comments mixed in with the positive feedback, like, oh, this brought me out of it because it didn't seem real, to things that actually were historically real. But they were mixed in with. I mean, I've gotten nothing but glowing comments. All of my reviews, everything. Maybe people that don't like it just aren't putting stuff in there because they don't want to be mean. But I mean, I think the lowest review I've gotten is like a 3-star review, but then the write up that went with that, I was so happy with that write up that I really didn't care how many stars they clicked on. So
Mm,
it's been a really positive experience with both books. With the feedback I've received has been wonderful.
okay. Introduce us to the Ballad of Jace. Please give us an overview of this novel.
So the Ballad of Jace, I went a completely different. I stepped away from uh, reality, and my brother had gotten me into reading these books that are called Lit RPG, which is literary role playing game, and it's kind of like if the main character was a character in like a computer role playing game where you have to do these quests and level up and that kind of stuff, and the books are written kind of from that perspective. And I was having a lot of fun reading them. They're not, it's it's the way Marvel movies are a lot of fun, but they're not cinema with a capital C. That's kind of the way the lit RPG books are. They're a lot of fun, but you wouldn't call them you know culturally important or anything there. So I was having a lot of fun with that, and I decided I wanted to write something that was just fun to write. That I didn't have to do a lot of research. I didn't have to really get crazy with, So I decided to write one of these lit RPG books, and with pretty much everything I do, I always come up with a character first, and I get to know that character in my head and really understand him and who he is and what he's like and what his motivations are and all that kind of stuff. And then I build a book around that character. So I came up with Jason Howard, who is a studio musician in LA, and he's got masters in stringed instruments from the Boston Conservatory. So he's a very well trained, classically trained musician, and he's a studio musician in LA, and he's also got his own band, which is what did I call it in the book? I think I called it Punks of the Round Table, and it's basically they take medieval instruments like the hurdy-gurdy, and they play punk rock in the bars of Los Angeles. That's his band. But Jace doesn't have a lot of really close friends. He has a lot of people he knows and he gets along with, and he's kind of popular, but he doesn't really have like people he's close to, except for his best friend TJ and her husband, which happens to be his cousin. And so he hangs out with them every now and then. So he's walking home from their house after a gaming session. They were playing Dungeons and Dragons, and he gets hit on the back of the head or something and wakes up in a fantasy world. And he's no longer himself.
Mm.
He's now a halfling. And there's magic and all that kind of stuff. And so the whole thing is, the rest of the book is him coming to grips with, he's not in Kansas anymore, so to speak. He's not in LA anymore. And learning to navigate this magical world. And it's very much about the character more than anything else, and his growth and his journey and found family and growing into, this world and who he is and embracing different aspects of himself. And so it's the feedback I've gotten for it is that it's genuinely funny, which is what I was
Mm.
going for. It's definitely not a serious book. It makes fun of itself, but it's got its serious moments and it's got its heartfelt things and all of that. But it's meant to be, in general, a very cozy book and a very warm book and a funny book. And the feedback I've gotten is that it really hit the mark on that.
Okay. Now is Jace, is he what happens to him in this magical, he gets hit in the head, this magical realm, does he as he it's does he go in and out of this magical back to what quote unquote reality, or does at the end of the book he come out of the magical and somehow it's changed his life? And I'm thinking of a movie, the actor's name, he did comedy, is not coming to me, but he did something. There was something he did, and he entered this. He had this superpower to make everything go the way he wanted it to go, but it did not have the effects on his real life. It had effects that he could not stop. Adam Sandler. It had effects that he couldn't stop or control, and some he regretted. Is that some of what happens in the Ballad of Jace? Does he stay in this magical land? Does he come out? Does it affect his real life?
His real life, as far as we know in that book, unless I write a sequel and come up with something else. But uh, as far as we know, he is permanently in this new world, and
Oh,
it for the rest of the time he does not come out of the new world. He is actually there. He's in the new world, um, and he just has adventures. And in his real life, he didn't have didn't have a bad relationship with his parents or anything, but it wasn't particularly affectionate and loving, and wasn't cruel or anything. He never, his parents did love him, but it was just distant. So he never really had a lot of great uh, interpersonal, like deep interpersonal connections. And throughout the Ballad of Jace, with his adventures, learning to wield magic and different things like that, he it's kind of a found family and soul searching kind of thing, but it's framed in a little bit of ludicrous, fantasy world. He's learning magic and he's a classically trained musician. So what's he do? He summons an electrical guitar that doesn't need electricity because hey, it's a magic world and he can do that. And so it doesn't try to be Tolkien or you know anything that's remotely serious, except for when it is kind of serious. So
ah. Now, how old is Jace, and what audience is the book written for?
Jace is 26 at the time that he
Hmm.
goes into the new world. So he's old enough that he got his master's degree and then moved back to LA and became a studio musician and kind of established himself in that industry, and was making headways in the local band scene with his weird punk rock band. And Yeah, so he's old enough for all that, but still a pretty young man. You know, still a lot of life to look forward to, a lot of lessons to learn, kind of thing. And what was the rest of the question? I'm sorry, I got babbling.
And what's the audience? So who would be a great audience for the Ballad of Jace? Who would you say these people who like these type of books would love this story?
If you're into lit RPG, if you know what that is and you're into
And I
that,
don't. Can you tell us what is that? What exactly? I've never heard of that before. Exactly what is that?
it's literary role playing game, lit RPG, and it's
Ah,
exactly what I said before, where it's written kind of from the perspective. So in the book, let me actually open up. I have it in front of me. Um, as it goes in, there are things like uh, let's see, the arrow looked translucent as it flew, and when it hit the bison, it hit with an impact of a truck. The bison almost fell over as it was knocked several feet to the side. Bloop! You have learned a new skill. Stealth shot. Arrow undetectable by target until struck. Deals double weapon damage. Additionally, deals bleeding damage every second for 5 seconds. 3-minute cooldown can only be used from stealth.
hmm.
So it kind of it has that regular like fantasy novel, but then it's also interjected with things that you would see in a game. And like if you were playing an online or a role playing game on your computer, different things where you would learn skills and you level up and you get more powerful and that kind of you have to do quests. So it's definitely meant to be fun, not serious. And I love lit RPG books in general, but I have a hard time with a lot of them because they have like so much of the game stuff and not enough of the story. So I kind of call mine lit RPG light. In fact, the full title is The Ballad of Jace, not Your Mother's Lit RPG. I'm saying it's a
Yeah.
little bit different. So it's even with the title, I'm just trying to be funny. I'm trying to be tongue in cheek. I'm trying not to take myself seriously, not even take the genre seriously. And there's a lot of wonderful books like mine that don't take the genre seriously and are fun and funny, and I love them. But the audience would be, my there is some mild swearing, potty mouth in the book, um, but it's not, you know, uh, it's the exception, not the rule. There's not a whole bunch of it, but it is a modern day young man, studio musician in LA, thrust into a fantasy world. So every now and then he'll say like "Holy shit" or something to that
Hmm.
effect. And sorry if you don't allow swearing on your podcast. I should have asked
No, you good. Go ahead.
that. So but that's about the worst. And there's some fantasy violence and stuff. But my one of my best friends, his daughter's in second grade, and she reads a little bit every night before she goes to bed, and she loves it, and she absolutely loves the book, and she has a good time with it. She reads it aloud to her mom, and but I also my editor Andy Malinsky, uh, he gave it to his 16-year-old son who absolutely loved it, and my editor enjoys it, and my mom, who is 78, yeah, 78, she loves it. And she's not afraid to tell me when she doesn't like something. it's, and my brother, who it was written for, really enjoyed it. Who's he's got to be pushing 60 now, coming up close.
Okay.
So I mean, it's really, there's no distinct target audience. It's very lighthearted. It's very fun. It's got a lot of pop culture references, a lot of songs. It actually has. I have a soundtrack on Spotify.
Hmm.
Uh, I think it's called like the Ballad of Jace, not your mother's soundtrack. This is my soundtrack that I put up on Spotify.
Okay.
That's got all of the music that's listed in the book. It's very it's very much about Jace, and the feel of it is very much his personality, where he's kind of a witty, fun guy that loves pop culture and loves music. And the book is really that's the book is if you like, if you go to Comic Cons and you like pop culture, if you think it would be fun to go to Comic Con International in San Diego, you're probably going to love this book.
Okay. Now, Lou, you've written historical fiction and with this lit RPG or type of fantasy. Which is your favorite story form, and why do you think what attracts you to that genre?
Uh, I don't have a favorite genre. Um, I love everything from uh, I don't know if you know who gosh, the Hieronymus Bosch books. That's now a TV show, and I think a couple of TV shows now, and that kind of stuff. But it's like a modern day LA detective books. I love that. I love
Okay.
science fiction. I love science fantasy like Star Wars with the space magic. I love fantasy books. I love lit RPG. I absolutely love historical fiction. I
Mm.
probably a third of the books in my house are historical fiction. I love
Oh,
comic
okay.
books. I just love reading. I love
Hmm.
imagination. I love fiction. I like I like nonfiction. I've read quite a bit of nonfiction, but I just love imagination. Anything that takes imagination, where you're telling a story and you're coming up with. And I even love reading books where I don't generally like the way the author writes, but I love the way they think, the things they come up
Mm.
with,
Hmm.
I can forgive a lot of what I would consider bad writing for me, because I think one person's bad writing is another person's best book they ever read. But things that I would consider bad writing, I still absolutely love and enjoy, because I love the concepts and the ideas and the world that this author came up with.
Hmm.
So it's hard for me to pick a favorite anything. The book that I'm writing right now is a modern, I guess you would call it like a modern fantasy or a contemporary fantasy or something. It's a guy living in Oregon on the coast that finds out magic is real, and he's got to he's got the potential to use magic, and he's got to learn it real quick because the big bad is coming to take over the world, kind of thing. And he's got to, so that's what I'm writing right now. I've also got some ideas written down and things for science fiction books that take place in space and that kind of stuff. And so I want to be kind of a John Scalzi type of author. If I had to pick an author that like a John Scalzi writes, he's got some books that are series. The Old Man's War series is a science fiction series, but then he's got just tons of books that are standalone, and he's got and that's what I want to do. I don't want people to be. I don't want to be. Uh, I don't want to be the author that has the big giant epic series that everybody's getting mad that the next book didn't come out quick enough or whatever. I want to be the author that nobody knows what I'm going to write next.
Mm.
What's that genre going to be? Is it going to be a series? Is it going to be a standalone book? Is it, because I want to write things that I enjoy, and I don't want to be tied down to, even if I do books in a series, I want them to be more like Terry Pratchett's Discworld, where you can pick up any book in that series and you're fine. You don't go like, oh, dang it, this is the fourth book. And now I got to read the earlier ones to figure out what's good. Every book can be standalone on its own. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
And
Yes.
that's my goal. That's what I want to do. And that's, I can't afford, because anybody that tries to put out a book, it's very expensive. Um, you can put out a book for next to nothing. You could write it in Microsoft Word and use the tools that Amazon has to, get it out there and online, or Ingram Spark. But if you want to get it professionally edited, it costs per word. And if you want to get cover art, or if you want to make, it gets very expensive. And I decided when my wife convinced me to start putting out my books, I decided I wanted mine to be as professional as possible, because I read a lot of free books and I listen to a lot of free books on Audible. And so I've come across so many books that I absolutely loved it, but there'd be spots where like it says the like, it's where the author
Oh,
wrote it and didn't hire an editor. And if you try to self edit a book, you're going to miss so much because you wrote it and your mind just knows what you intended, and you just miss a lot,
yeah,
you
yeah,
know? And so a lot of the free books that I've read on Kindle and listened to on Audible and stuff, there's things that take you out because of the lack of editing, or if you're reading it and it's, words are spelled wrong, or there's missing punctuation, or things that just kind of, your mind kind of doesn't really see the punctuation until it changes the meaning of a sentence because it's not punctuated right. And then it kind of takes you out of the book for a minute while you figure out, okay, what were they really trying to say? And those are the things that I didn't want in my books. I was like, I don't care if anybody likes my writing or not. Well, I mean, I do care. Obviously, I want people to like it. But I mean, it's not going to make or break my pride if someone doesn't enjoy what I wrote. Hopefully, someone else will. What would just break me as a person is comments like, you know, you spelled this wrong, or this grammar's wrong, or this is, stupid things that I didn't want people to be taken out of my story because of things that could be fixed. So
yes, yeah,
I went the route of where a lot of authors can't, and I'm not knocking the authors that don't do this, the authors that just put it out for free because that's all they can do. More power to you. You are awesome and you are brave, but it's kind of the cowardice that drives me to go the expensive route, because I don't want I can't take the hate that would come from those mistakes, like it just
yeah,
crush my soul, me myself.
yeah,
So I can only afford to put out at most like one book a year,
yeah,
because I do, I want to have it as professional as possible, and I want to hire an artist to do the cover, and all these things. And
yeah,
I want to support real artists doing real art and that kind of stuff. So I don't even
yeah.
know why I started this tirade, but it's
No, no,
expensive.
no.
And so I
And you
do it
know what? I
slowly.
agree with you. You can do it for free, and but I always think about my brand and how I would be remembered. And I'm with you. You want to be as professional as you can. Even if somebody doesn't like the story, they can look and tell you put some effort into it. From the cover and on, they can tell that you put some effort into it. Now, talking about the cover, as we come down to the last few minutes in today's show, I love the cover of the Julius Caesar book. For those who are interested in maybe creating their own novel and they're listening now, who did you talked about your editor? Who designed the book cover? What was it like finding the designer and working to create the book cover?
So for To End the Night, if you look in the back cover and if you look inside, it says Inicio Press. I don't really have Inicio Press isn't. I don't want to say they're not a real publisher, but their whole thing is they take the the self out of self publishing. So what I did for that book in particular is I hired Inicio Press to do all the formatting of the book, to get it professionally formatted and to get the cover done and all that kind of stuff. So I hired Cup and Quill, who Andy Malinsky, Linda from Cup and Quill handed my manuscript off to Andy Malinsky, and now I don't ever want anyone else to edit my stuff again because I enjoyed working with him so well. But then when it was all done, Linda said, "Hey, I know this guy that does this thing called Inicio Press. He can help you get your book out there." And I didn't know the first thing about, formatting the book and cover design and all that kind of stuff. So I just went with that. And it was a great experience. And but again, it's not free. It's expensive. Um, so I would recommend any authors out there that if you have the means to I would absolutely use Inicio Press or another kind of lightweight publishing company. Or if you can navigate the whole traditional publishing world and you actually want to get your book in front of as many readers as possible, I would love to go traditional publishing because I just don't have the advertising power to tell people about my book at the rate that I'd want, or traditional publishers can do that.
Mm.
But yeah, that's the story of the cover and everything. Is Inicio Press actually has people that work for them, and they came up with the cover and all that. With my
Oh, they did
second
a
book,
great. Oh, go ahead.
I was going to say, with my second book, I actually uh, reached out to an artist that I kind of liked their stuff, and that artist, I had used her in the past for other things that I've done, but she was busy, so she said, "Oh, my friend could probably do that for you too." So I contacted that artist and actually got her to do a custom cover and everything, and so I'm much happier actually with the Ballad of Jace's cover, just because I was able to reach out and support an artist directly.
Ah, okay. Where
So
can
that
off the
that made me really happy with that.
where can off the shelf listeners get copies of your books?
Anywhere books are sold. So they're on Amazon, they're on uh, barnesandnoble.com. They're available if you go to my website and click on the links there. You can get them direct from Ingram Spark at a little bit cheaper than you can other places, because I put them as a discount if you buy them direct, just a couple bucks off. And you can go into just about any bookstore in the world that's able to order books and tell them you want my book, and spell my funny spelled name, Lluew Grey, which is Lluew, Grey, Grey. Um, and yeah, they can get it. It's available through Ingram Spark, which means just about any bookstore in the world can order it.
And are you on any social media in case any listeners wanted to keep up with you on social media?
Absolutely, I'm Lluew Grey author on Facebook. I think I'm just Lluew Grey on Instagram. I'm Lluew Grey author on Blue Sky. Um, I think there's some others that I don't check nearly as often. I'm really bad at doing social media these days, and I do try to answer if people contact me and stuff, and I will absolutely love to engage with my audience. But everything's so depressing in the news these days. And when I log on to social media and I see, like, oh, this person in the government is espousing genocide and whatever, yeah, I'm just like, oh, I don't want to read this. so,
Yeah.
so I'm much less engaged uh, with social media than I used to be, just because it's depressing.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, I do check it periodically, and I absolutely, if someone wants to get a hold of me on social media, you can also email me at lou.gray@gmail.com, and I'll answer that. And my
Okay.
website is lluegrayauthor.com, which has links
Yeah.
to all of my social media and links to buying the books and that kind of stuff.
Oh my goodness. Well, thank you, thank you, thank you for taking time out of your Saturday and your day to be here with us and our listeners.
Oh, can I throw one more thing out there? I almost
Sure,
forgot.
absolutely.
If you use itch.io at all, Lluew Grey author at itch.io, you can actually get free copies of my books. You can download PDF copies of my books for free. Um, and for the immediate future, I intend every book I write to go up there for free as well. So you can buy them and support me that way. Or if you just want a PDF copy without the cover and without all the crazy, cool things like that, you can actually get it for free. And there's a link on my itch.io to my coffee page. You can go on there and buy me a coffee. Uh, if you want to support me that way, if you want to read the book and then decide whether or not you want to support me. So sorry, I'm
Okay.
taking up so much of your time.
No, no, no. We've actually, oh, you've been a pleasure. We have had, again, the pleasure of interviewing Lluew Grey here. He's the author of the books To End the Night, Julius Caesar's Secret War, and The Ballad of Jace, which we spoke about today on today's show. If you came in midstream, no worries. Once the show finishes streaming and it's up, you can YouTube, iTunes, Spreaker, it's so many different locations. You can go back and listen to it in its entirety as many times as you like. And you can also share it with people who love just books in general, historical fiction, which again, the Julius Caesar 10 the Night, and also fantasy. And we learned today about a new, I learned anyway about a new writing form that I hadn't heard about, this literary role playing. Uh, lit RPG. So you can learn about that too if that's you want to explore it for the first time, or if you already are aware and you want to dig into it a little bit more. The Ballad of Jace might be something that you truly will love if that's something that you do like. We have enjoyed having Lluew Grey here on us. His website again is lluegrayauthor.com, LLUEWGREYAUTHOR.com, Lluew Grey Author com. So we want to thank you for being here with us on Off the Shelf. Please come back here next Saturday. We will have another awesome author and guest here for you. Tell everybody, tune in to Off the Shelf. People who love all things story. All things story. We've had movie producers on. That's just another story for them. So all things story, off the shelf books. And as I always tell you, you are awesome. You really are. You are amazing. Go out and create a fabulous day for yourself. See you back here next Saturday. Lou, I'll shoot you an email when the show finishes streaming. Thank you. Bye for now.